Welcome to Photoactive, a podcast about photography and technology. I'm Kirk McElhearn.
And I'm Jeff Carlson.
When we connected a couple of minutes ago on Zoom, I asked Jeff if his hearing is okay.
What?
Is your hearing okay, Jeff?
Yes, I'm here to play. Why are you asking?
I understand you were in a noisy environment this weekend.
I was in a very noisy environment. I went to the Las Vegas Grand Prix Formula One race. And yes, I did have hearing protection because those cars are incredibly loud. Very, very, very cool, but incredibly loud.
And you didn't do this because you're a fan of Formula One racing, did you?
I was not a fan of Formula racing up until about maybe 4 weeks ago. So I was actually there on assignment. I went to cover it for CNET to write about some of the technologies that they use. Specifically, T-Mobile invited CNET to come down. And so I'm writing about like the 5G technologies, about how do you cover that many people who are in the stands, and then the organization and their communication needs. It's all very technically fascinating. But as part of it, I was there at the race and at a couple of the practice runs and all of that. It was a very interesting experience, and it turns out it was kind of an interesting photographic experience for a number of different reasons.
So we'll get to that in a second. I have never attended one of these races, but I've driven on two Formula One, one Formula One race course and one endurance race course. The endurance race course is around the town of Le Mans in France, where the race goes around a race course, but then also goes on normal roads, and you're going along a normal road, and all of a sudden you see the whatever markings you have on the edges of racecourse roads. You see them for like a few hundred meters. Like the cars come on and then they turn off. And the other one was in Monte Carlo. When you go there, the Grand Prix in Monte Carlo is quite spectacular, that it goes through the city streets, and you just drive through there and you see some of the iconic bits of the race, like that one where they come down the hill on a hairpin turn, which you often see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do the same thing in Las Vegas. So they literally turned the Strip. So the Strip is Las Vegas Boulevard, where all the big hotels and resorts are. They turned that into the track, and so basically Las Vegas, certainly Las Vegas traffic gets turned upside down for this event because they are using those streets. They are erecting barriers. They are putting up all the scaffolding for the lighting. It's crazy. And they even have areas where you would have like pedestrian walkways that go over the Strip to get from one side to the other because it's a very, very big boulevard. And the Formula One company that they actually own this event, they put up like barriers so that you can't actually see the race unless you have paid for it. So if you're just a regular pedestrian, most of the places that would be a great vantage point, you can't actually see, which is really kind of rude. And there are a bunch of people who, because those sections also have escalators, and so you'll just see like a procession of people going up and down the escalators to watch the race. Oh, okay. Do you know how much it costs to buy a ticket? I do not. I probably should, but I got access because T-Mobile is one of the main sponsors.
Obviously, you were on a press junket.
I was on a press junket, yeah.
But I'm just wondering if you had an idea how much the hoi polloi paid to see the race.
Yeah, exactly. Because T-Mobile is like a big sponsor, they have this whole T-Mobile zone. So that's where I was. That was around the sphere, the giant dome that is basically a big LED screen, which actually is really cool in person. I thought it was going to be super weird and tacky, but it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had press access.
One thing I want to say, and you're going to put some of your photos into the show notes, and you've only sent me a few, and I'm sure you have hundreds. It looks like you're in a prison camp there.
It kind of is a prison camp. And actually, I don't think I can put any in the show notes. So here's the thing.
Oh.
So The way this is set up, and like I said, F1 owns this event, and they are very restrictive about what you can photograph. Technically, I don't think you're supposed to photograph anything unless you are like even as a bystander. Of course, everybody did. Like, there's no way you're going to stop everybody from doing that. In fact, we were going to have a briefing that was about a lot of the technical specifics of what T-Mobile is doing for this race. And the F1 organization said, well, you can't take any photo or videos when you're in this area. And it's a big area. So it's not just you can't take photos of the race or the track. You can't take any photos in this area. And so they basically canceled this briefing because we couldn't take any photos or videos. And in fact, we were going to have a video team come with me to shoot all this great, super cool footage.
Yeah.
And when it became clear that they couldn't do anything, it just became me. So I do have photos, and I can post them on social media. So if you go find me at Instagram and Glass and all of those things, you can find those in our show notes. I can post those as a spectator, but I can't post anything for CNET, and I would say it's probably iffy to post it for a podcast.
For the podcast, yeah, because that still looks somewhat official. I do want to point out also that you sent me one video, and they don't go fast. They go really slow when they go around the track, don't they?
They go super slow. It's all TV trickery. No, but I can tell you that the 4K slow-mo version on an iPhone is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's interesting in terms of being a photographic event. I shot a lot with my iPhone, a lot of video on the iPhone, just so you could see the cars coming by and hear them. In terms of shooting stills, because this was, again, restrictive, I couldn't take a camera with a removable lens because that's considered like a professional camera. So I couldn't take that into the area, but I could take my little Fuji X100V. So I got some.
And did they check the camera to make sure the lens didn't come off?
Oh, yeah. When we went through security, they checked everything basically. And I had to bring anything that I brought in. If it wasn't just in my pockets, I had to have a clear plastic bag. In this case, it's a clear backpack that we bought to go to concerts and things, because more concerts and stuff, at least in the U.S., they're requiring that if you have any kind of bag, like even, a purse, it has to be clear plastic or they won't let you in for security purposes.
And you knew all this in advance, so you didn't accidentally bring a whole bunch of stuff and had to go back and drop it off in your hotel room.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of restrictive. It sounds like they're ruining the fun. I mean,
yes.
So a professional camera, if I had gone in with my Leica Q3, which doesn't have a removable lens, they would allow that theoretically, but that's probably a more professional camera than yours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's a blanket policy to make sure you're not there with your, 300 millimeter lens trying to get wonderful pictures that they are paying Getty or their own people to get. And so I think it's all about controlling the message.
It sounds like they're ruining the sport for fans who may also be amateur photographers, and like all these conditions make it something that I would never want to attend. They are
making it so that if you want to do something, you have to pay money for it, and then even so, it's still restrictive. So, I mean, it was packed. So I don't think, a lot of people have a big problem with this. And honestly, because everybody had a phone, I think everybody got decent stuff. But a phone, unless you're shooting on manual on your phone, which I actually didn't even try, I didn't even think to try, the cars go by so fast, it's going to be a blur if you're trying to shoot stills. So it's super challenging for a phone in that respect.
Yeah. Well, the photos you showed me, although I shouldn't say that you showed them to me because you're not supposed to have shown them to me because they're top secret.
I show them to you as a friend.
Yeah, exactly. You captured the cars must have stopped when you were taking those photos, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The Max Verstappen, who was leading the race, just stopped there for a little photo opportunity. No, what ended up working was I had my X100V. I set it the shutter speed to 1/2000th of a second.
And that's the fastest shutter speed, I think.
I think it can do 4,000, but there's like some kind of a restriction. Okay, I should know this about my camera, but I never shoot that high speed.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Above 2,000, the indicator turns yellow, and so what I think that probably means is that it can do it, but at some sort of trade-off, and I didn't know what that was. So I did 1/2000th of a second. I opened the shutter. I opened the aperture as wide as it could go, so f2, and I had my ISO set to automatic, so it would just do whatever it felt it needed up to 12,800.
And there's plenty of light there, obviously, because it's for TV.
Exactly. Well, for TV and for the drivers. I mean, the drivers.
Well, that's true. This was at night, and they need light. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you're right. I should have mentioned that. This was a night race.
Yeah.
And so you have plenty of light coming off the track, and then there are things in the background. Like, I mean, it's Las Vegas, so there's like a giant Ferris wheel. So that was in my field of view, so that was all lit up.
Yeah, but there were these big frames with lights all along the course.
The frames with lights, there are also giant screens, so you can see
that too,
basically the broadcast of it.
Yeah. Because otherwise,
so,
a sport like that, it's like when you watch the France, you only see a few seconds of the race. Here, you've got the screen, so in this case, it's going around in circles, and you see them, 60 or 80 times, but you only see a tiny little bit of the entire course. And if you didn't have the screen, you would be kind of bored after a while. Like the Tour de France, if you live near there, you watch on TV, you go outside about an hour before it's coming, and when they pass, you go back and watch the rest on TV.
It's kind of like that, yeah. There are 50 laps, so you get to see them quite a bit, and the screen kind of like keeps you up to date on what's going on. Where I was sitting, there was a curve, so it curves around the sphere. There's like a big curve and then like another little secondary bend. And so they were all slowing down, and by slowing down means they were probably only going 170 miles an hour instead of 215 miles an hour. But like they do zip by because the track is not horrendously huge.
Yeah.
Like you're not left just waiting for long periods of time for cars to come, especially as the race spreads out.
Yeah.
So it's a very cool experience, I just have to say.
Do you want to do it again?
I do, yeah. And
if someone pays for it.
Even better, yes. Another part of this is, to start researching this, I started watching that Drive to Survive documentary series that's on Netflix, which is made by the same people who did the
Tour de France.
Tour de France Unchained, I think it's called in the U.S. And so you start learning about the personalities and what goes on in the background. And it was pretty good. Oh, one last camera related thing is that I switched to manual focusing because they go so fast. There's no way that you could maybe a new camera could do autofocus quickly enough, but my little one didn't. And then I set it to burst mode. So I have many, many, many photos of an empty track or like the very back of a wheel.
Yeah.
And that's just how you have to do it. Yeah.
So I've just looked up on the website. It looks like, so there's a straightaway. It looks like you can see the sphere. So it doesn't look like it's the same one you were at, but it might be. And tickets start at $469.68.
Wow. That makes sense. Formula One, It's funny because Formula One is still relatively new in the U.S.
Yeah.
But there is so much money there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's one of the rare sports that transcends borders.
Mm-hmm.
That people around the world watch. People around the world may watch soccer/football, but they'll watch their country's league mostly, and then they'll watch the Champions League or whatever the other things are. But they're mostly watching just their own teams. And this is something where I think races are every 2 weeks during the season, and they go to a different country every time. And that means that it's in a different time zone. So people in that time zone get to see it at an appropriate time. And of course, this was at night, which meant that for Europe, it was in, well, the wee hours, right? So
yeah, I think it was like maybe 4 a.m.
Yeah, 7 or 8 hours later. But it's morning for Asia, which maybe is one thing that they want because that's a big, area where there's a lot of fans. So and of course, the problem of all of this is that these aren't even sports anymore. They're just money-making machines. And the whole sporting aspect, particularly this with the mechanicalness of it, and the fact that you only found out the next day that 2 of the drivers were disqualified, which I saw on the news on the BBC. They mentioned that they were disqualified because some little bit of something under the car was worn too little or too much or something. And so 4 hours after the end of the race and they had expected the cars, they were disqualified.
Yeah, in fact, the thing that I saw was the little piece was, I want to say like 0.15 millimeters too worn or something like just a super, super, super tiny.
Yeah.
I would actually say, granted, I'm new to this. This is definitely still sport. It's just there's so much of the mechanical side to it.
Well, did you get to see any of the teams working? I mean, what do they have, like 30 or 40 people with each team?
Oh, they have like literally hundreds of people there for each team. Yeah.
Oh, that many. Because when you see them around the pit stop and where the cars are when they're prepping, you see about 30 or 40. But I guess there's all sorts of other ones who aren't on the track, when the race is going on or before the race.
Yeah. If I remember, I'll link to a YouTube video that I found that's all about how the logistics of moving this and setting it up. Because in Vegas, of course, they did all this work to block off traffic, and which, by the way, was a nightmare to get around, especially in the days leading up to it when I had to go to different briefings and things like that. But also all of the places where they house the teams and they house the VIPs and they house food, all of these things are just set up for this event.
And I'm sure each of the teams brings their own food, and they've got their own trailers for the drivers and the staff and everything. And there's each team has a dozen trucks, if not more.
Yes, it's amazing. Oh, one last photographic thing that's interesting. I got a briefing with a photographer who shoots for Getty, and he was talking about how they do that on that scale. And he said that all the teams are clients of Getty Images, and so when Getty's shooting, they're making sure that they have shots of every car and every driver because the teams want that for their own use. The teams also have some photographers, a lot for social media and stuff.
Sure.
All except Ferrari. Ferrari doesn't contract with anybody. They do everything in-house.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So
well, they're one of the teams that tends to win, so they probably have more money, and maybe they just want to control it rather than give the control to someone else.
Yeah, I think that's entirely it.
Okay, well, you've got the hat. You're wearing it right now, Las Vegas Grand Prix hat, and you're going to be wearing that for a while. I want to talk about something that I discovered recently that's really interesting. I've mentioned William Eggleston, who's one of my favorite photographers. And I discovered just last week that there's a new book that came out just last week called The Last Dies. And Eggleston is well known for his, I want to say, boring, banal photos, where he takes the sort of everyday humdrum and turns it into something special in his own style. And he has long used a type of printing that is, well, there aren't many people who use it anymore, and I'll explain why. These are dye transfer prints. And this book is called The Last Dyes because the story is really interesting. I'm going to link in the show notes to a couple of websites. One of them is the David Zwirner Gallery, who made these prints for an exhibit and published this book. Eggleston started working with a printer, I think in the 70s, and he really liked this technique. And dye transfer is a way of you make 3 matrices with 3 different dyes, and it's kind of like 4-color printing, right? It's like when you used to 4-color pre-press and printing and all that, CMYK, what is it, cyan, magenta, yellow. There's no K here. It's just cyan, magenta, and yellow. And it makes a rich, very saturated, very alive, contrasted image. And what happened in the 1990s when Kodak stopped creating the dyes and the papers and the products to make this, these printers who'd been working with Eggleston bought up as much as they could. And they've been using it over the years. They've done prints by Eggleston and other photographers. And these are literally the last ones they can do because there is no more material. There's probably a couple of, barrels of some dyes around, but not enough to do anything serious. And so this is a book. It's about 50 or 60 images. Some of them are from Eggleston's first exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art, a book that was published called William Eggleston's Guides, and others are from other exhibits and books. They're all from 1970 to 1972. If you know the William Eggleston's Guide, you'll recognize some of these prints. So basically, these were new prints made from the old Kodachrome slides that he had back then, because that's what he was doing. He was using Kodachrome with a Leica 35 millimeter f2 Summicron lens for all of these photos back in this day. And he changed to a different kind of camera later. But what's really interesting is the process. And I had you look at the videos on this website talking about this. There's 2 videos. There's one about 10 minutes with Eggleston looking at the prints and saying, I like all my photos and they're all wonderful and I like to look at them. And then the second one's about, 18 minutes. And it's the 2 printers explaining how they do this and going through it. And what I really appreciated is, we've talked about film photography and analog and that there's work, right? But the work is usually you put your negative in the enlarger, you shoot it onto a piece of paper, and you do some dodging and burring, and you develop it, and that's it. But this is a totally different process with multiple steps.
I wasn't trying to think of a transition, but going from the racing to this, like there's as much technology here as anything. And it's fascinating. I think it'll be especially fascinating for people who have been mostly shooting digital or may not have ever developed prints and things, because like it's that amped up to, turned up to 11. Because
it's Formula One printing.
It is. Yes, it's Formula One printing. Just like the number of steps, the precision, the equipment. I mean, they have so much equipment in their little lab. They've got like automated machines that tilt the baths so that the
to keep mixing them.
Prints, yeah, exactly. I watched this just enwrapped because it's just I'm speechless. But not because I haven't had enough coffee.
You're a podcaster. You're not supposed to be speechless.
I know. It's just that it seems so far removed from all the photography that we do now. And, also on the developing side, I mean, all these terms that we use in Lightroom and Photoshop, they come from this where like there's one clip where one of the matrices is in a bath and the guy mentions that, well, this jug of I think acetate maybe
acetic acid,
like with this jug you can pour some in and that'll lighten the shadows, or you use this jug to cut down on the highlights. Like it's so entirely chemical, but still you're dealing with those aspects of like, how do you fix this? How do you, if it's too contrasty, you don't have to start over. You can just add a little bit more chemical to do it. Just fascinating stuff.
So you were asking me before we started recording, how many prints do they make? The gallery that did this did an exhibit, and each of the prints was made with 5 copies and 3 artist proofs. And what I'm guessing is the artist proofs are their various tests, because you can use more or less dye to change the contrast, and they might try them out, and then they record the settings and they make the 5 prints. It looks like it takes a day to make the matrices and to make the prints of one image. It looks like it's a very long process. Now, you're doing one image, so you're doing it over and over, but each time you do it, you have to start and you have to make the 3 matrices, red, blue, and green, which then transfer to the inks of cyan, magenta, and yellow, because they're opposite on the color wheel or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And this is a huge amount of work. And you were thinking, whoa, they can't be doing thousands of prints. And no, it's a very limited. I have no idea how much these sell for. I'm guessing they're $10,000 or $20,000 at a minimum, because this is a renowned photographer and the amount of work involved. Yeah. I want to mention there's another technology which is really similar, which has also reached its end of life. Now, when I was 18, I dropped out of college. Yes, I started very young, and I had a messenger job for a few months. I was working for a company that did retouching of photos for magazines in the fashion industry. And they were very large photos, and kind of the size of the ones that we see in this video about the dye transfer prints. And these photos were called sebachromes, also known as ilfachromes later. They are dye destruction prints. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes. The paper used for this process has at least 3 emulsion layers, and each layer is sensitized to a primary additive color of light. The layers contain a dye related to that color. During exposure to a color transparency, each layer records different information about the color makeup of the image. And in development, the silver and unnecessary dyes are destroyed to form the image. Dye destruction prints are characterized by their vibrant color and durability. And I found a website talking about the last sebachrome, published early this year, because just like for dye transfer printing, there's no more sebachrome paper. These are 2 technologies that are very similar. And I remember watching these people retouching the photos, and you do it in Lightroom or Apple Photos, and you just click a button, it does it automatically. And these were people with dozens of little bottles of watercolor and brushes of different sizes, and they dip the brush in and dip it on the spot to get rid of a dust, a bit of dust or something like that. It was an incredibly manual work. And so these were all photos that were produced for magazines and advertising agencies, which would then be used for layout, because you have to have the photo to take the photo for offset printing from your whole layout. And of course, all this is digital now, and these 2 technologies are no longer used, but both of them made similar types of prints. The sebachrome, when you'll look at, you haven't seen the video of the sebachrome, the printing machine for this is tremendous. It's huge. Wow. It's much bigger than the one that you looked at about the dye transfer. So it is interesting that these are 2 technologies that have basically faded away, that are well known among people 30, 40 years ago who were shooting film as like the summit of what you could get in printing.
Yeah. There are a couple of other things that struck me. One is the precision of the people doing it, because when they are adding the different layers, this is a thing where if it is off by just a hair, it's going to mess up the whole thing. And the woman who is doing it, she seems to anchor it on just one edge closest to her, but I didn't see anything that was like holding the thing in place. She just rolled it out and got it right. So like that alone, I'm sure it's just from lots and lots of use and practice, but still super highly technical and super skilled to do it. And the other thing was there's so much timing involved. I mean, now when we're editing photos, a lot of the focus is how can I save time? I can use masking in Lightroom to select something, and that's going to save me 20 minutes of doing something manually. Here, we're going to put this in this bath, and if we leave it in for 1 minute, it usually does it. If we want to make it a little more saturated or a little lighter, we leave it in for 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. And so, like A, there's time that's built into that, and B, it's not like you say, all right, with this chemical, it's always 1 minute and 18 seconds. So you're looking at it and making judgments right there as it's happening because you have a chemical process going on that you then have to pull out and stop with another chemical. So it's just so many different steps that you can't skip over in the interest of convenience.
And you have to mix your chemicals very precisely because this is chemistry. I remember talking to Michael Kennel once about his prints, and he would be in the darkroom and he'd do all these attempts and he'd make notes of like, okay, with this one I'm going to dodge here and burn there and print for this amount of time, and he'd make notes. So once he'd done a few prints, he'd keep this record and he could go back and make more of the same print, knowing exactly how he did it. But this is decades of experience to know what it takes to get that. And he's only doing black and white. It's not like he's working with color, which gets so much more complicated.
Right. I don't know. Photography seems to be this really interesting thing.
Well, I bow down to the technique of these people.
Yes.
And in a way, it's sad. I mean, these two people who are making these dye transfer prints, they must be in their 70s. They've been around for a while. In fact, the woman said that she first saw a William Eggleston photo when she was 16. She went to the Museum of Modern Art in New York to see the Picasso exhibit and then stumbled on one of the photos and ended up printing them years later. She was a painter. These are techniques that are being lost, and that will never exist again because the chemicals need to be mass-produced, the paper needs to be mass-produced, and while film is still going to exist, this is a kind of craftsmanship that we just will have to say goodbye to. So,
yeah,
makes me sad to think about that.
It does, yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, that was my snapshot. Your snapshot is your what would you call it? Olive green or matcha green Las Vegas Grand Prix hat that you're wearing here, that you'll be wearing on videos for months to come.
I will never take it off. That's
Okay, our next episode is a very special one. It is episode number 200. We have surprises for you.
200.
Can you believe that we've done 199 episodes so far?
Unbelievable.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
when did we start this? 7 years ago? 7.5 years ago?
We started this at the turn of the century, and
podcasting
it's like 6 or 7
didn't exist
years
at the
ago.
turn of the century. Yeah.
But we started it, and then
Yes.
and then we laid fallow for a long time, and
Exactly.
then emerged.
Okay, so until next
Okay.
time when we hit 200, take care.
Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to Photoactive. You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. We couldn't afford the M. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/photoactivecast. That's photoactivecast in one word. You can subscribe to Photoactive in your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts. See the links on our website. And think about leaving us a rating or review in iTunes or in your podcast app.